Welcome to the live stream. Happy Sunday afternoon. Oh, the last of the warm summer, spring, fall. We've had like a really warm streak. It was 75 degrees on Christmas Day, and I ain't even mad about it. It was so beautiful. It's going to be like low of 25 in 2 days. So enjoy it. Enjoy the weekend out flying. Some of the local folks have gone out flying. And we're here to stream. We're here to stream. Well, you shouldn't be here. You should be out flying in the beautiful weather. For those who are having beautiful weather, it's cloudy. It's cloudy. We're talking on the live stream about what our next hobby is going to be after FPV. After FPV no more. I have been. Oh, wrong side. I've been playing a lot of Peglin lately. It's a roguelike pachinko style game. Having a lot of fun with that. Started playing it on Christmas. Been playing it a little bit. That's nice. Wait, how do I get rid of this? Get rid of that. Go away. No. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Not at all. And then Blunty. Is it in live stream chat, Blunty? Blunty, you made some pretzel rolls. Very nice.
I did.
Getting into baking. I said when we were chatting about this before the stream, Blenty, that I'm surprised you don't already. You seem like a handy person who has like, you know, you would. It seemed like you would already be into cooking. I don't know why I thought that. Okay, it's because you. It's because you. Yeah, because it's a stereotype. It's a harmful stereotype. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, up to this point, I have not been into cooking, but decided to dive in a little bit. My mom asked for a cheesecake for Thanksgiving, and so that was the first thing I did, and then it just has been spiraling from there.
Yeah, I once upon a time, while wandering through a bookstore, I came across this book, The Bread Baker's Apprentice by Peter Reinhardt, and I just found it. It's such a romantic. It's about how to bake bread, but it is almost a love letter to bread baking, and I found it so engaging. I got into bread baking, and I really went through a period where I was baking just a ton of bread. Bread baking it's so interesting because look, hardcover purchased on June 25th, 2011. That was actually, I'm not even sure why I bought a second copy. Because I bought the first copy in a brick and mortar bookstore. I'm sure of it. I must have bought it as a gift or something. Bread baking is so. Were they yeast rolls, Blenty?
They were flour, water, and yeast. Yeah.
Yeast. Yeah. So it was yeast fermented. It's so interesting because yeast is this little microorganism, and you build this friendly environment for them to grow and multiply, and they like live in your dough, and your dough is in some sense a living organism, certainly a microorganism, and it grows and it grows, and you take good care of it, and then you just put it in the oven, you bake it, you kill them all, you make delicious bread. But like it's a very very sort of it's literally a living process. It's so cool, bread baking, so cool.
I was trying to figure out earlier where I can have like a 75-degree spot to make like a sourdough starter.
Yeah. I never got into sourdough much. I think I made a sourdough starter once, but everything I did was mostly with active dry yeast. But yeah, it's really good. It's really fun. Really fun. So cool. Let's see. What else are we getting into? Aber the Ham got a lathe. Got a lathe for Christmas. Very nice. He's lathing things. What else are people doing? Yeah. Anyway, because as you all have heard, I'm sure you've all heard, FPV is dead. It's over. It's killed. No? Apparently not. Apparently we just don't know what's going to happen, and no one knows what's going to happen. So we're just going to keep doing our thing, I think is the takeaway. We're just going to keep doing our thing. Yeah, I'm doing my thing. Here I am. Oh, man. I kind of feel like I want to a little bit of like a recap of how the week went, because the FCC notice that said all foreign-made SUAS and SUAS components are on the FCC banned list. That came out like, an hour before, roughly, maybe a little more than an hour before the last live stream. And it was like, and everybody's had a week to respond with nothing. We have no indication from the government on exactly how this will play out. And I said that my biggest, people have made response videos. Drone Camps made a response video. Madstech, he was one of the first ones to make a response video. I made a response video. Honestly, no one knows, right? Anybody who says this is what this means and therefore X, they're wrong. You just don't know. You don't know. And I try to be very cautious and very neutral in saying, well, here's what it could mean. Here we don't, here's some, an analysis. But I've heard people saying, oh, so-and-so put out a video and he said it means X. And I'm like, well, you just don't listen to that person because he doesn't know. No one knows. to me, the most significant thing that I'm waiting for will be when a major FPV retailer, like GetFPV, Race Day Quads, Pyrodrone, and anybody else who runs an FPV store in the United States. Sorry, you're small enough that I don't put as much weight behind your opinion. You know, like was it Wrecked? I forget who it was. He was like, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. It's like, well, yeah, you are, but you know, you don't move enough volume to really, you know, if somebody who's doing just tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue says, I've decided I'm going to do X, like they probably ran it by legal and they have a lot at stake. If you're just, you know, running a store out of your basement, like you're going to do what you're going to do. But I don't see that as kind of like a leading indicator. No offense intended. Hopefully none taken. None of them have made a statement. It reminds me of when the video transmitter crackdown happened and stores stopped carrying video transmitters that advertised over 1 watt of output power because they didn't want to get in trouble with the FCC. And that was a case where whatever the law or regulation might be, if a major retailer doing millions and millions of dollars in revenue says, I'm going to change my behavior, that has meaning. That just has meaning in and of itself. So none of them have said anything about it, though. None of them have said, well, I don't think we're going to be able to import this, or we're going to stop ordering that, or we're not going to be able to carry this. So essentially, we're still in the wait-and-see phase. Yes, Blunty?
I will just mention that the FCC has not been completely quiet. The FPVFC reached out to the FCC and they have asked us for a time and date for a meeting to discuss the situation. So there is at least some situation in which we will get to discuss. I have no idea what the time frame will be. We're offering a lot of open times and dates.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying they're not completely quiet. It wasn't a null response back. It wasn't a automatic thing back. It was like a, hey, why don't we meet and discuss your concerns, that sort of thing.
Well, and if there's a glimmer of hope, and I don't want to offer false hope, because I think there's a lot of reasons to be like, this is bad. And then, I'm going to offer false hope, and then you'll feel better, and then we'll still get squashed. So, like, I don't want to do that. But if there is a glimmer of hope here, my impression is that a lot of times the way this administration is run is that a decision comes from the top. It doesn't necessarily involve getting feedback from the public or from the people who will implement the policy first. The guy at the top says, we're going to do X, and then everybody else has to scramble to make it work. And, you know, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it may mean that the FCC found about this at about the same time that we did. You know, maybe, one day before, and they were just like, I guess we got to write this memo. And it may mean that they're still scrambling to figure out exactly what it means and how to implement it and what the legality of it will be. And so normally by the time you had an announcement from the FCC about a new policy, it would kind of be too late to give them feedback. They would have already gotten the feedback and the decision would have been made. Whereas in this case, maybe they're, kind of just as surprised as we are. And there might be a chance that calls like the call, they're like, well, guys, give us input. What do you think? I don't know. I don't know. I'm really happy to hear that the FPV Freedom Coalition has scheduled a call with the FCC. And we'll be able to hopefully make as good of an argument as anybody.
Yeah. Just want to be 100% clear. They offered to schedule, and we offered them times and dates. So with the government, it's very open in the air, right? So I like to be very specific about what's happening. We've sent back a list of times and dates, and we're waiting on a reply. And that could be any time.
Yeah.
So with the government, we never assume.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I like to say the kind of things we use, most of it doesn't have FCC licenses already. So technically, we shouldn't be importing it already, and we do. So in a way, I find that hopeful that nothing will change for us. If you use DJI drones, you're boned. But
the main thing we've said back and forth, even in private conversations, is just that what matters is enforcement. In reality, what matters is enforcement. Like, regardless of what all the things wash out, what gets licensed, what doesn't, etc. Right? What matters is how the things are enforced, because currently we skate around a lot of these rules anyway, and they're not really concerning to us. So yeah.
Anyway, we will continue to let you know as anything plays out, but I think that we just won't know. And for the time being, I think nothing will change. The first time I hear, like, I remember when I first started hearing about DJI Care drones. These are not new DJI drones coming into the country, but these are drones that people sent off to China or wherever to get their DJI Care warranty service. And DJI was returning your drone to you, and Customs was not letting them in the country, and people were just losing their drone that they owned. And I was like, oh, well, that clearly represents a on-the-ground shift in policy. Like, you can say, oh, the Uyghur Protection Act says you can't import DJI drones. It's like, okay. But when Customs actually starts rejecting shipments and people start losing their equipment, that makes me stand up and take notice. And I'm still waiting for something like that to happen as a result of, like, obviously DJI is done. I mean, they're not going to be able to bring new stuff in. Existing drones can get in. O4 air units coming in through with a flywoo box on them. So, like, there's ways that they're getting in. But DJI, I think that, but as far as just random FCC stuff, foreign-made SUAS components, I think it really remains to be seen. We just don't know. Anyway. I'll say a couple more things about this, then we'll move on. I see people trying to point fingers. Somebody messaged me, and he said, Skydio's to blame. I heard that Skydio caused this. I've heard some people pointing the finger at Unusual Machines and or Rotor Riot. And I feel like you guys are giving... There's two things going on here. Number one, you can't point the finger at any single entity as the cause of this. On a decision like this, with a government the way that ours is, like way back just after the election, when Doge was doing its thing and Elon Musk was ascendant, if you had told me that Elon Musk by himself got in a room with the president and told him, you need to do X, and then the president was like, yep, I agree, and the president did X, I would believe that Elon Musk, a singular man, made this decision, right? And you could point to a single actor. I don't think that you usually can do that. So if you look at this and you want to blame somebody, I don't think you can point to Skydio, Rotor Riot, Unusual Machines, Anduril, anybody, any one person. There's a whole bunch of voices lobbying for a whole bunch of things, and what filters up and out into policy is a very, I think, muddy process. The other thing is that I just don't personally think that, like, Rotor Riot and Unusual Machines, I think in the FPV community, it's tempting to blame them because they're just one of us, and it's like we look around at the cast of characters and we're like, it must have been him. But, like, how many of you guys, and some of you how many of you guys have ever heard of Anduril before I mentioned it just now? Some of you have. I'm going to bet that most people in the FPV community have no idea who Anduril is. Okay? There's players out there who I've never heard of, who you've never heard of. You just can't point a finger and go, I blame Skydio, I blame Rotor Riot, I blame Unusual Machines. My take on this is that this policy shift is a tectonic level thing. Tectonic, like tectonic plates, continental plates, shifting and moving slowly, inexorably. Pressure building, and eventually a plate moves over another plate. An earthquake happens, a mountain range is formed. And you're looking at all the little ants running around on the mountains and going, it was him. There are cultural things happening, there are technology things happening, etc. And yes, there are people behind them, but like, I just think that it's tempting to try to cast blame here, and I don't think you're likely to identify the actual party at blame, if there even is one. And the other thing I say is, if you did identify it, what are you even going to do about that? Let's say that Skydio, 100% Skydio is entirely behind this move. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying I've heard that name bandied about. Hypothetically, if that were true, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that information? You going to boycott Skydio? You weren't going to buy a Skydio drone. You're not going to change the policy by knowing that information. So, I don't know. I think that answering the question, what am I going to do right now? Like saying who's to blame is only effective if you have the means to hold the party that is to blame to some kind of account and or make a difference in the future. And I don't think you have that. I don't think I have that. I don't think most of us have that. So I'm saying I think it's probably just a waste of effort and a little bit of just drama mongering, just like, oh, I'm going to decide who's to blame, and then I'm going to point the finger, and I'll feel like I'm a smart guy. It's pointless. All right. Good to see you, Dave Messina, in the chat. President and CEO of the FPV Freedom Coalition. Of all the people who are opining about this, I think Dave Messina is one of the ones whose opinion I value the most. I don't know if a lot of you guys know his background or who he is, but Dave is a smart guy. I don't even blame the companies who saw this tectonic shift coming 5 years ago. 3 years ago. Like Rotor Riot, Unusual Machines, Red Cat clearly saw this coming in some sense and positioned themselves to benefit from it. In that they're setting themselves up to sell to the military, they're setting themselves up with domestic production. And people, it's like when the hobby that we enjoy is threatened and you see someone else, some lobster getting to the top of the pot and maybe getting out of the pot, you know, it's easy to be like, well, F that guy. It's like, I don't know, man. If the train was going off the cliff and they jumped out and did a little dive roll and then stood there and watched the train go off the cliff, can you really blame them? Or are you like, it sucks that the train went off the cliff. You know? I saw it coming or lobbied to make it happen. No, I sincerely don't believe that Rotor Riot or Unusual Machines have that much influence. I sincerely don't believe it. I think you're giving them way too much credit. I think it's convenient to give them that credit because you want someone to blame, and they are they're the only target that you see. That doesn't make them the right target, and it doesn't make it realistic to do that. Anyway, I think it's fashionable to hate Rotor Riot. I think you're giving them way too much credit if you think they caused this. All right, let's wrap that up. Thanks for humoring me by letting me go on about that. Now that's a fair take. I don't think they caused it, but I don't want to support a company with a Trump. Don Trump Jr. is on the board of advisors of Unusual Machines. I've heard reporting that they actually gave him shares in exchange for him coming on as board advisor, which some people read as a quid pro quo. And certainly he's an influential person in the government, and him having a personal investment in this company certainly means that he would be motivated to do things to benefit the company. So those are all statements that I think have basis in fact. But to say that they caused this through that relationship, I think, is oversimplifying. And if you don't want to support a company with a person with that name on the board advisory board, that's a personal decision that I think is you know, you could do that or not. Everybody gets to decide where their money goes. All right. Okie doke. Let's answer questions. I pre-ordered the Radiomaster T8L, and it says it's not going to get here for a while. Should I wait it or burn my money on a TX12? I mean, I would take a TX12 over a T8L just because I think it's a better radio, unless you're just a rank beginner. But the T8L certainly is inexpensive. It's completely normal for pre-orders to take far frickin' ever on Radiomaster radios. You just have to wait. That's the world we live in. Sorry. I would take the TX12 first, personally, over the T8L because I think it's a more versatile radio. What's the best path to learning smooth cinewhoop style flying? Asks John Bass. John Bass, I think what you should do if you want to get smoother is, number one, lower your rates significantly. Bring your rates down to 350 or 400 degrees per second. And that alone will make you a lot smoother. Maybe a little bit of expo as well, but not a ton of expo. Maybe an expo of 0.2 to 0.4 with an overall rate of 350 or 400 degrees per second. Something like that. And then number two, as you fly, try to make the smallest movements on the stick that you can. Try to barely touch the sticks. I'm assuming you're in acro mode, not angle mode. Angle mode, it's a little harder to be smooth because in angle mode, you deflect the stick and you hold it where it is. In acro mode, you center the stick and you don't touch it. And the quad will just keep doing what it was doing. And try to just put the lightest pressure on the sticks as you can. And anytime, like let's say you're coming around a turn and you see that you're a little bit to the inside and you need to swing to the outside. Instead of going, huh, and kind of jerking to the outside, try to just make a tiny correction that causes the drone spread that correction out in time and space as much as possible. So that the drone, as it comes around the turn, instead of going, huh, and missing the corner, it kind of just goes around the corner. When you feel yourself wanting to make a correction, make the smallest correction possible and let it play out over time instead of jerking the sticks. And you just have to work on that. You have to think ahead and plan ahead the drone's movement so that you don't have to make rapid corrections, and just lower your rates and try and smooth out your fingers and practice. You know of any good sources for open source drone frames? The one that you should get is the TBS Source 1. TBS Source 1 is an open source drone frame. The DXF files are available for download, and you can import them and modify them. You can see how other people did it. There are 6 versions of the Source 1 out there in the world. You can probably find the DXF files for all of them somewhere, although I don't know exactly where. But search for the TBS Source 1, and that will get you going in that direction. I'm not aware of any other open source drone frames where people have published the DXF files. I'm sure they probably exist, but that's the one that comes to my mind. You want to explore cutting it for 3 inches and below. I don't know about 3 inches and below. Is there a 3-inch version of the Source 1? I don't know about that. I just got a notification. Sorry if you guys heard that. Go out over the live stream. I just got a notification. I have no idea where it's from. Oh well. It probably isn't that important. Ah, my computer died. No. How do you reflash Betaflight for 64 LEDs? Ooh. I'm going to guess there's a custom define.
Links in the live stream chat.
You demand, Blunty. Thank you for doing the research. You make the live stream so much better. It was such a good idea bringing you on as a producer. / whatever. Here's the link in the chat. I'll put it in the... here it is in the YouTube chat as well. Cloud build option for 64 LEDs. dash D use LED strip 64. And I think what you would need to do is...
That's right there. Yeah, LED strip underscore 64 in the custom defines.
Yeah, you don't have to do the dash D use. It would be awesome if some of these custom defines were just like in a pull down or something, because a lot of people aren't going to remember them. But here, okay, update the app. In the Betaflight configurator, we're going to go to firmware flasher. I think we need to enable expert mode. We'll choose a flight controller. And then over here on the right, we'll go to custom defines. Let me move that up slightly. And we need to put LED strip underscore 64. Set all your other options as appropriate for your build. And then load firmware online and flash, and bing, bang, bong. That's how you do it. Just save your configuration file, save your CLI dump, and then reload your CLI dump afterwards. But you're going to need to reflash with this LED strip 64 option. Thank you, Plenty, for lining that up for me.
Crom in the Discord points out it is in the dropdown, technically.
Is it?
For custom defines.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's take another look real quick.
So under the other options.
It is. Okay. Oh, that's amazing. Do I need both LED strip and LED strip 64 or just LED strip 64?
I would say probably both. Because probably one enables just the bit of code that does the 64 and the other does the whole rest of the LED strip.
All right. Well. Nice. Thank you for pointing that out, Chrome. Yeah, some of this stuff is here in other options, and then some of it you have to do a custom define where you have to remember the define. Some of them I remember. The problem is that there's there's so many custom defines that like showing a list of all of them would be pretty inconceivable. Although it might be nice to be able to get a list of all of them. I don't know how you would compile such a list, whether that could be automated or not. Okay. Well, what effect will switching from triblades to biblades have on my 75mm whoop? You will get less thrust, for sure. Probably longer flight time. More responsiveness, although the more responsiveness of the motors may be offset by the less thrust, and so that will have an indeterminate effect on your PIDs. Yeah. I don't know. Joseph Dahari says, efficiency, quiet, longer flight time, little looser in the corners. I'd buy that. If I have broken bearings in my motor, should I replace the bearings or the whole motor? If you have a source for bearings, go ahead and replace the bearings as long as that's the only thing that's wrong with them. I would say a lot of times when I have tried to replace motor bearings, it is such a pain in the ass getting the bearing out of the motor that I destroy the bell or destroy the motor, or I just say F it and I give up. I have gotten bearings out before and destroyed the bearing in the process, and then was not able to push the new bearing in without feeling like I was going to destroy it. And I'm sure that there are people out there who know a lot about pulling bearings who are like, wow, you're just doing it wrong. You just got to put the bearing in the freezer overnight. No, I don't know. But for me, I've tried to replace bearings before and have failed at it enough times that I basically just take a motor that has a scrap bearing and I scrap the motor. But you may be smarter than me, better. So if you have a $20 motor and it's a $4 bearing, The thing is, like, if the bell was dinged up and off balance, you're probably not going to fix that. If the shaft is bent, you're probably not going to fix that. But if a bearing is damaged and no other damage was done to the motor, it's pretty easy. Once you replace the bearing, it is just a 1-for-1 replacement and the motor's as good as new again. So, like, a bearing is the kind of thing that, because it's a discrete thing that you take the bad one out, you put the good one in, and you're back where you started, it's tempting to replace the bearings, but the process of pulling the bearing can be tricky if you don't know how to do it. And I've had a lot of trouble pulling bearings before. Why does nobody show one mention that for beginners you need 18650s for the RC, but they never tell you to buy a charger for them? I love it when people are outraged over something that just is because they didn't realize. You don't need a charger for your RC controller. Every single RC controller charges the 18650s internally. You just plug the controller in, and it charges the batteries inside itself. You do not need a separate controller. That's why no one mentions that you need a separate charger, because you don't. Why does no one mention this? I didn't know a thing, and I'm really angry about it.
I will also say,
am I off base here? Yeah, go ahead.
One thing with the Boxer. Grok lied to me, of course. This is why you don't use AI, kids.
Use AI, but understand that AI is. Sorry, Blunty, I'm heading off your question. Save it. Don't lose it. AI is like that one employee who will never admit that they don't know anything or are wrong. And you're like, you ask them a question, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and like maybe they're right, but they could be wrong, and they're never gonna admit it. So you just have to constantly. You cannot have it like if they're like, "Oh yeah, no, nobody closed it last night." Nope. Like maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Don't get mad. When Grok says you need a charger and no one else is saying you need a charger, don't be like, "Why will no one else admit to this secret?" No, Grok is just lying to you. AI can be useful. Go ahead, Blunty.
I was just going to say that some people don't know that there are two separate ports on, like, the Boxer, for instance. So the top is the port that goes in your computer, but it won't charge. The bottom is the charging port, or whichever. I can't remember. But
Yep.
Food for thought.
Yeah. I recently was steered wrong by AI. I was trying to do some research, and I used AI. AI gave me an answer that is correct but incomplete. So AI said it was about the 1121 chip and what frequency bands it can support. And Gemini told me that it supports frequency bands 1, 2, and 3. I went to the data sheet and I cross-checked it, and it was correct. But there's also a frequency band 4 that I overlooked. And so I had correct but incomplete information because I overtrusted AI. Of course, I may not have found the answer at all if I hadn't used Gemini. So anyway, oh my God, it's 40 minutes into the stream. We still haven't touched a super chat. Well, let's get on it. Thoughts on that old Bay watch I sent pictures of? Oh, we have a channel. Thank you for the super chat. We have a channel on the Discord. Can I make this go away? I don't want this. I don't want this to be here. I don't want this. How do I make it go away? I don't know. User settings. I'm sure that I can't do that. No. Video? Voice preview video. Video background. Streaming. Streaming. Hide streaming. Preview streaming. No, none of that. Oh well. We have a daily watch pictures channel where people post pictures of watches. And this is Jesus of Suburbia has an Old Bay. Is the dial like colored like Old Bay seasoning? Is that a coincidence? It has a texture that reminds me of Old Bay seasoning. And when I saw this, I thought, is that referring to the seasoning? And yes, it is. This is an Old Bay watch. Now, I don't know who could like Old Bay enough to want to wear an Old Bay watch, but I respect people who wear quirky watches that vibe with them and no one else. So, okay, hang on. Blunty is telling me. Where do I do that, Blunty? Is it under the gear?
No, if you you know how there's that little window that's popped up? If you make that bigger, it should be at the bottom of that window. The little dots.
Uh-huh.
And then unclick that. And then
there's the voice channel. We'll still see your camera. Well, I can see my camera. I just don't want the floating.
Right, but if you remove that, I bet it will remove it from the floating thing, so you won't see it, is what my thought process is, right?
No, it's just going to show this. I guarantee you. It'll just show that because of course, it's not going to do what I... Oh, no, you were right. Okay. Okay. Fine. I accept. I accept. Yeah, that's great. Got a metronome watch. Yeah, anyway. Whenever I get a new hobby, when I got a car, when I got my Mustang, we started the daily car pictures. Ooh. Hello, this person's way too cool. Got a Supra. Oh, I know this guy. He posted pictures of his new Supra. This punk. Look at this little punk. Duct tape on his brand new Supra learning to drive. Oh, kids these days. Duct tape on the paint. Are you kidding me? I would slap this kid. Just turned 20 and decided to get myself a brand new Supra. Congratulations on being well enough off at the age of 20 to buy a new Supra. Respect. Congratulations. Fantastic taste in cars. Fantastic color. But what is wrong with you? Stop. This is not acceptable. That's literally duct tape on your paint. It might not even hurt the paint. Just don't do that. Figure it out. Anyway, it's a nice car. I see he's been doing some donuts too. Anyway. Oh, I can't figure out which asset to download from Betaflight 2025 12.1. Thank you for a $5 super chat. First date FPV. What do you mean? Oh, you're trying to download the configurator. Is that right? I'm not entirely following what you're trying to do. So if we go to the GitHub page for Betaflight and we find releases, yada, yada, yada. And then there's assets. You don't download any of that. You don't download the source code. Don't download that. Yeah, don't. You don't download anything from GitHub. You go to app.betaflight.com. That's the configurator. If you need to, you go up here in the upper right and you download it as an app so you don't have to open your web browser or be online, although you still need to be online to download the firmware. You go to the firmware flasher, you choose a board. Oh, look, they're dividing them up now, Blunty, between verified partners. That's cute. And vendor/community. Wonder what that's all about. Anyway, whatever. You pick the board. And then if you need to, you pick your options, right? You choose all your options, whatever you need them to be. And then you hit Load Firmware Online, which is underneath me. Load Firmware Online down here at the lower right. And then if you want to save that file locally, you click right here and you download the file. You click on the file name. Or you just download it online and flash it. I hope I've answered your question. I'm not entirely sure I followed it, but hopefully I answered it. How to output 1080p from the DJI Pro Controller 2 to an HDMI capture card. I only get 4K out. I don't know. I've never used a DJI Pro Controller. I've only used Cosmo Streamer. So I don't know. It may be that the Pro controller always upreses to 4K. Should we? Dare we? I will have no idea if this answer is correct. Okay. I have no idea if this answer is correct or if it is a complete hallucination. Nevertheless, maybe. Have you tried this? You need to access a hidden context menu that only becomes active when a physical connection is detected. So I guess you have to have HDMI plugged in. Connect the HDMI cable. Access the quick menu by swiping down from the top of the screen. Long press the HDMI icon. Select resolution. A submenu will appear listing resolutions. Oh, here's a video. That suggests that this may be true.
Right, I'm going to do a little tutorial now.
Alright, I want to do a little tutorial now. I love it. I love it.
Clear all the mess away. I'm going to connect my Air 3S, or I think any other drone that uses a RC2 remote, to the HDMI port.
I love the non-rhotic R. Air 3S.
On my television. And they say you can't do it, but you can. And it's really quite simple. So, as you see, the RC2 is connected to the must go USB-C to HDMI, and I'll control it off. Controller, which you must do it this way round. So you connect that all up. Make sure it's
apparently there's a few more steps to it.
Controller on, and the controller will be.
Caveman Ariel says if they set the drone to 1080p, the controller should output 1080p. That would be my guess, but again, I've never worked with this.
Boot up.
So maybe the drone is at 4K.
As you see. Now if we watch the telly, still no signal. Still no signal. Oh look, something's happening. So the controller is on the controller. So the switch it on for television, and fly 8 meter once now there, and the USB.
Okay, I don't think he showed any secret menu though. All right, well, hopefully some of that has been helpful. I don't know. I'm going to be honest if I don't know something. Sunshine, thank you for a $10 super chat. That was 59 Norwegian kroner, too. How many USD is that? Oh, $6, okay. Sunshine, just saw the latest budget-friendly action cam, the SJCam C400. A lot of cool features. Video seems budget. $265.99. Any use case, it might be worth it. Painless 360 review video with timestamps. You know, my experience, the Chinese action cameras, the combination of video quality and durability means they have to be really inexpensive for them to make a lot of sense putting on a drone, certainly a freestyle drone. Yeah, so
stuff I do here, but actually,
I've never loved them. Like the Runcam Orange was so inexpensive compared to the GoPros of the day that it was, and the video quality was acceptable.
Everything's touchscreen, so that we 30 frame to 65 have been and it's good with play one.
Yada yada yada. Can I see the video? Can I see video? You gonna show me video? No. Oh, here we go.
And do a bit of comparison.
I'm walking down the lane that I normally do.
So I can already tell it's not wide angle enough for what I would want out of FPV. Just because I know he's got this handheld, and how big his head is. I mean, in general, but also in the frame. No, I'm joking. How big his head is in the frame, I can already tell it's not wide angle enough for what I would like to put on a drone. Unless that's adjustable in software, which it may be.
Overcast, cold morning.
Okay, like see how the highlights are blowing out here? The dynamic range of the sensor is not great. The color is very muted. right? We can see from the way these highlights are blowing out that the sensor has poor dynamic range.
And
like if this was a GoPro, it wouldn't look like that. The way that it just goes and turns white, right? Just we lose all color and there's this big blotch of white where there's a highlight. A GoPro would have more nuance.
not super ideal, but hopefully you can see here I'm holding this.
And this is not that sunny of a day. That's not a ridiculously bright highlight. Love the scarf, by the way.
With a bent arm, and you can see that because of the wide field of view...
Not that wide. It's not that wide. What are you talking about? Are you insane? If it was wide field of view, that's not that wide.
There's actually a really nice bit of context around my head. If I hold it at arm's length, kind of looks like that. Now I guess
maybe if he's literally holding it here, it's wider than I think. What's the field of view? SJ Cam 3-in-1 field of view. 154 degree field of view. That's fairly wide. He must be holding it real close to his face. Oh, is this for putting on a drone though? Just looking at it? Mount anywhere, including your cleavage. Anywhere. I mean, we could have mounted it anywhere, but we grabbed this woman and stuck it on her chest. Just oh, here we go. Do you want a close-up? Oh, I'm finding myself more and more inclined to buy it. I don't know why. So strange. Oh, there we go. That's what I need. I need a doggy chaser. Okay.
Using the audio, the microphone here on the camera.
Microphone doesn't matter for FPV.
In the little screen at the front, which means framing is a lot easier. I'm using the microphone on the camera with something called denoising turned on.
Anyway, like this image quality is not good. Look how muted the colors are. There's not a ton of dynamic range. It's just a muddy mess. It is not bad for a $250 Chinese camera, but it's certainly not exceptional.
Is I can actually take off the camera bit and kind of stick it here so it's that view. And
I mean,
on the 4K image. And if we zoom into the same...
So, you know. Are we using it here? Because this camera also doesn't have fantastic...
This is literally, as you're seeing it now, it's how it comes off the camera. I am going to be using it over the coming...
Anyway, I question the durability for like a drone. Image quality, not spectacular, but about what you expect from a Chinese action cam. And I would rather have a GoPro. Even at twice the price. That's my take. But I'm a entitled YouTuber, so who doesn't understand financial constraints of the real world. It's possible that could have been improved with some color grading, but my experience has been that you can make up for poor color with color grading if you're very skilled at it, but you can't make up for the lack of dynamic range. The blown out highlights will just make all of your work much, much harder. So it doesn't seem great. Public service announcement, says Elliot Kincaid. Thank you for $20. See question in chat. All right. Elliot Kincaid. Looking for this question from Elliot Kincaid. Where are we at? The button. Where is this question from Elliot Kincaid? See question in chat.
It's there. I'll pull it up on the screen for you.
Oh, thank you. I've always twisted my motor wires and heat shrink them. A dozen flight controllers later, and I now know it's a bad idea. Can you speak about back EMF and why it's a bad idea? I don't know why it's a bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? So twisting wires, when electrical current moves through a wire, it radiates an electromagnetic field. If you have two wires twisted together with opposing current, which such as the power and ground wire of a connection, then the electromagnetic field will cancel out, and it reduces radiation of electromagnetic field from wires. I have no idea how that would affect back EMF, because back EMF is measuring the voltage on the wire. And I don't see how twisting the wires would affect back EMF. Would it change the inductance of the wires such that the back EMF is delayed? I don't think so. I'm not following at all what you're saying. I don't think that twisting the motor wires helps in any meaningful way, but I don't think it hurts either. All it would do, in theory, is reduce the radiated electromagnetic energy from the AC, PWM signal. If that, braiding and twisting are also not the same thing. So the idea of twisting is that the wires are parallel to each other and co-located. And they cancel each other out. Braiding doesn't even do that. So you're going to have to tell me why you think that twisting or braiding is bad. And then I'll tell you whether I think you're right. All right, we'll come back to that if you follow up. Lucky says, my HGLRC ELRS 2.4 gigahertz receiver is bound, but not showing input in Betaflight. The RX and TX are wired correctly to their opposites on the flight controller. Tried a different receiver and it worked just fine. Lucky, the first thing I would have you check is whether the model match is turned on in that receiver. That is a receiver-specific option. If model match is on in the receiver but not turned on in the module, then you can get a case like this where it doesn't connect. So you'll know that's happening if you see a triple blink on the receiver. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That means model match. The fix is either to go into the receiver's web UI and turn model match off, or to go into the ExpressLRS Lua script after the receiver is connected, and you turn model match on and then off again in the Lua script. Hopefully that's the help. Lucky says, what if it's not? What do you mean, what if it's not? What if model match is off? Could the receiver be configured to output S-Bus? You can remap the receiver outputs and make it output non-standard things. What you could do is go into the web UI and reset the receiver options back to factory. Maybe that'll fix it. Or reflash the receiver, I think will also cause it to go back to defaults. Thank you for 100 rupees from a person whose name I consistently am not sure how to pronounce. Paying double for GEPRC SpeedX 1960 kV, is it worth it over xingE Pro 1800 kV? No. Nope. I can't imagine, the xingE Pro is a more budget motor. The GEPRC SpeedX is ostensibly a more premium motor, but paying double? No world. There's no world. Will a 55 amp versus a 60 amp Steadyview make any difference? No, not at all. The amp rating won't make a difference. Atreides, if you're trying to read 12S voltage, what you need to do is get an ESC with telemetry and use the ESC voltage sensor as your voltage source. That's how that's almost always done. If you want to, you can build your own voltage divider. Some flight controllers will have a second VBAT input specifically for voltage sense that takes up to 16S. Is another way to do it. But most because if you're running 12S, then the ESC obviously takes 12S. You want an ESC that supports telemetry, and the ESC can just report the voltage, and that's the simplest way to do it. Thank you, D12BA, for 10 Swiss francs. The quad flips out or shuts off as soon as it tries to stabilize above 20% throttle, but stays armed when still. No, probably it's one of the 4 flip out things. You say it happens at 20% throttle, but I'm guessing that's just when your quadcopter tries to actually fly, and that's why it freaks. So you want this video, and you want to check these things. There are 4 things listed in this video that you need to check. And you're probably thinking, I already checked those things. Check them again. Exactly as described in the video. Look at the first comment. I already checked those things, and I'm annoyed because I checked 2 more times and found that the solution was in fact in this video.
I will say, he posted in your troubleshooting chat in Discord as well just now. He's confused because he thinks something's wrong with his drone. Because even if he takes the props off and he moves the drone around, the drone shuts off. And I was trying to explain to him, though, that's completely normal.
That is also completely normal.
The drone is moving around without intended input. And it's trying to correct the movement because it thinks the drone's moving without commanded input. And so it's shutting it off because it can't fix it. It doesn't want the drone to be flinging all over the place and hitting people.
I can spin the motors up and down to 100% in the motors tab without issues. That is because when you spin them using the motors tab, the PID controller is not active. So you're just making the motors go faster and slower. The flight controller is not trying to fly itself. The fact that you can spin them to 100% in the motors tab means nothing. I mean, it means your motors are working. So what would I suggest as the next diagnostic step? I would suggest, again, just to be clear what the symptom is. When I move my drone on the desk and raise the throttle above about 20%, it immediately shuts off. That suggests that the props are off, and then it's completely normal that it shuts off when you arm and raise. So you arm, and then you have to raise throttle because that wakes the PID loop up, and that's when the anti-TAS protection kicks in. At that point, if you move the drone by hand, it shuts off. That is expected behavior. The quadcopter is trying to fly, and you are moving it in a way that it doesn't intend to move, and it says, I don't like this, and it shuts down. Props on, props off. If you move the drone by hand, after you have armed and raised throttle, it will shut down. That is normal and expected. Nothing is wrong. So now you put the props on, right? The same thing happens during takeoff, where it violently flips as soon as the flight controller tries to stabilize. 100% it's one of these 4 things. I know you've checked it a bunch of times and you can't find it. It is one of those 4 things. Almost always.
As I explained to you, if you post each of those things in the Discord, in that troubleshooting chat, we'll help you make sure and figure out what's wrong. Because I've done this with so many people. Bardwell's done this with so many people. The video's made for a reason, right? Everybody thinks they're doing it right, but then you get to a step and they're like, "Oh, and I did this," and you're like, "No, you misunderstand. The numbers have to be here." Or they'll go, "Oh, my props are like this," and you go, "Actually, your props are upside down," or whatever, right? There's a step you're misunderstanding.
There's something that you're, and this is not this is like, I say this with all the compassion and love in the world, wanting to help you get to the right place. There's something you're overlooking, and you don't know you're overlooking it. So you've checked 4 times, and you've overlooked the same thing all 4 times. And you're like, I've checked 4 times, nothing is wrong. You just need someone who knows what to look for. And like, there's a 2% chance that you're one of the outliers, and you have a problem that isn't one of those 4 things. There is a chance, but it's a very, very small chance. And if we just get the right eyes on it, it's probably one of those 4 things.
I would say, experientially, probably more like 0.1% chance.
Okay, yeah. 2% is generous.
I just want to be honest, just because it's really, really rare. Like, people get really upset when you tell them this, but it's because it's so rare that something else is wrong. Yeah. That's why.
So what's the 2% problem, asks Notice. Notice, a thing that's not in the video is, if you have gone into the CLI and you have changed your mixer, you have customized the mixer lines such that the motors don't push the direction that the flight controller thinks they do. We don't touch on that because that is so rare. You would have had to go to the CLI, modify the mixer, and then forgot to mention to us that you did that. But if you were to change the mixer, then it would cause this problem, and it wouldn't be one of those 4 things. So that's something. That's something. What's another thing it could be? I mean, it could just be you have a bad flight controller with a bad gyro.
I mean, there's some really weird stuff, right? Like, maybe somehow you didn't... I mean, it's not... If you did the setup wrong and didn't tell us, the problem is all the steps catch it anyway, right? Because, like,
the steps have you redo the setup.
Right. The problem is, right, like, for instance, maybe motor wires are crossed, so the motors aren't performing correctly, or they're performing wrong, or sometimes they're firing and sometimes they're not, right? You're going to see all those in the steps where you check the direction and the location and all those kind of pieces, right? Or you're going to see the motors firing weirdly when you try to fly it. So, like, if you do it properly and check each step, you're going to catch a lot of the point ones.
Yeah. Another one that's really common is people in their head have decided that their quadcopter is spinning props out, but they miss that the flight controller is set to props in. It's just all their drones have always been props out forever. So when they check the motor order, they confirm that the motors are props out, and they go, yes, that check passes. But you have to check that the flight controller is set to props out as well, and that's why the wording of the check says to cross-check it against the diagram and not just from your memory.
Chrome points out another one that could definitely happen. I had a motor wire, the wire harness, pinched between carbon and standoff. It worked, but suddenly went to the moon. So it's because some other thing was crossing through the carbon and giving it signal. It was sending full power to the motor, right? Like full 100%, and then it was going to the moon. So, like, yeah, just weird stuff like that could totally happen.
If you try to take off and it falls and disarms, that could be a damaged motor, like the motor is desyncing, and so as you raise throttle and start to fly away, it drops the arm, and that causes the runaway protection to disarm. But if as you raise the throttle, it goes whoop and jumps, that's always motor direction, motor order, flight controller orientation, or prop on wrong. It's just always one of those things. It really is. It just is. Anyway, enough said. We're going to work on it in the Discord. Someone asked, where's the Discord? You join my Patreon to get access to the Discord. That's how it works. Patreon link in the video description below. I'd love to have you as a patron. Please, I need to buy more watches. HYC 1988. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I got a pair of Skyzone O4 Pro for the holidays. Ooh. Happy holidays to you. Should I move my rapidFIRE from my Fat Shark or leave the Steadyview module in them? I think that the rapidFIRE will work better than the Steadyview module, but the integration of the Steadyview module into the goggles, like being able to use the menu in the goggle to change band channel and so forth, is so convenient. I always run my Skyzones with the built-in Steadyview module, and it's okay. Melfish RC, if you joined my Patreon but can't find the Discord link, then message me on Discord or message me on Patreon. I'll give it to you. Any goggle recommendations in this current market? Cobham 14. Blunty, do we have a clip about that on the Livestream Clips channel? We've covered that a few times in the last month. For those who don't know, I have a YouTube channel, Livestream Clips, Joshua Bardwell Livestream Clips, where it has highlights of the live stream. Of course, replays of the live streams are up on my main channel, but you know, sometimes you just want the highlights. I'm sure we must have.
Yeah, we did
goggle.
That summary of all the different analog goggles, right?
Yeah, where is that? Is that up? Surely that's up,
yeah,
right?
But
which analog goggles to pick? That was a month ago. There we go. So what I would suggest you do, I'm going to just, bounce you to the live stream clips for this one. Check out this. Which analog goggles to pick on the live stream clips channel? Skyzone Sky O4X versus Fat Shark HDO Plus versus HDZero goggles. What's the best analog? Just search for Joshua Bardwell live stream clips. Scroll down in the videos and find this one. And the very next one is it worth investing into Walk Snail? What about the Ascent system? Should we abandon DJI? So if you're thinking about digital systems, there's a little bit of a discussion there. DJI versus analog for long-range FPV. There's a ton of this stuff. It's not detailed, in-depth review video, but Bardwell shows off his toolboxes. Lol. But it should get you in the direction of what you're looking for. Is it common for receiver wires to get severed after a hard crash? Thank you for $5, Alex Hall. Happened on my Mark V. You should not mount your electronics in such a way that a hard crash could easily sever the wires. So the wires should not be under any tension so that they have a little bit of room to move if in a crash it shakes or something. So I wouldn't say that that's common, but like you crash a drone, weird shit happens. I'm converting to digital. What do I need to do in Betaflight? The main thing you need to do is change your on-screen display, your OSD settings. So in Betaflight, what you're going to do is go to the Presets tab, and you're going to look for, oh, this is a lame, there we go. You're going to look for the OSD for FPV WTF, DJI O3 Avatar HD. This also works for the O4. Basically, all the digital video transmitters, you're going to select your UART that the air unit is on, and that is going to set up your on-screen display for your new digital video transmitter. That should be what you need to do. Skydar FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. Can I set all my rates on the radio instead of in Betaflight? I do not recommend that. I recommend setting the rates in the flight controller. Are radio-based rates just as good? I think that the Betaflight rates, configuring the Betaflight rates in Betaflight will give you sort of the maximum mathematical precision, because you've got your channel, you got your RC channel linear 1000 to 2000, so you have the full 1000 steps of resolution across, and it's linearly spread across the whole channel. And then Betaflight is calculating internally the curves. Whereas if you put your rates in the radio, you're going to get way more resolution at the bottom and way less resolution at the top, for example. Because you only have 1000 steps of resolution, right? So if you put a ton of expo in, you're going to get way more resolution at the bottom, way less resolution at the top. Betaflight is doing its internal calculations at a higher resolution, I assume. And therefore, like, I assume they're using, like, floating point numbers. I don't know. Maybe they're not. I don't know that for a fact. But, like, I assume you will get the maximum mathematical precision and resolution by having your controller channels 1000 to 2000 linear, and then doing all your rate calculation inside the flight controller. Here's a $5 super chat from Roshan Poduval 8579. Does HDZero run way hotter in general than other systems? No, all digital video transmitters run hot as shit. Frankly, analog video transmitters also run hot as shit. So, yeah, no, all video transmitters run hot as shit. I wouldn't say HDZero runs hotter than the others. They all run super hot. The thing is, they all overheat if you don't have air blowing over them. Now, does HDZero overheat faster than DJI? I mean, I don't know. Depends on many factors. But they all overheat in a minute or two, one way or the other. How can it be that I can't find my ELRS Wi-Fi network when I put my Radiomaster Zorro in Wi-Fi mode? Thank you for €6, Melfish RC. Go ahead, Monty.
You set up username. You set up your Wi-Fi name and your Wi-Fi password when you flashed your Express ELRS the first time or went into the Wi-Fi the first time, and now it's connecting to your network automatically.
That's a good one. I might have gotten there, but I wasn't there yet. Hang on one second. Let me show people what you mean. Let's choose the Zorro. Why not? That's what you've got. So here, let me zoom in. No. Why can't I lock that anyway? Yeah, good. There, I can lock it. I don't know why it wasn't already locked. So here, this is ExpressLRS configurator, right? When you set up your firmware, you have the option to put in a Wi-Fi network name and password. Okay? If you put a Wi-Fi network name and password, like your home Wi-Fi, when you put the device into Wi-Fi mode, it will connect to that Wi-Fi network if that Wi-Fi network is in range. And then it will not broadcast the ExpressLRS Wi-Fi network. So in theory, at that point, it will show up at the bottom of ExpressLRS configurator here in Wi-Fi devices. When I first found out about this, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I did it. But I mean, most of the time I would rather just connect to the ExpressLRS pop-up network. Yes, Plenty.
Yeah, just to be clear, you're only going to see it in the ExpressLRS configurator if you're on the same network and you're not on a Wi-Fi like guest network. So I think the common issue I see people run into is the radio's connecting to their normal network or the radio's connecting to the guest Wi-Fi, right? But they're on their normal network and it's partitioned so they can't see each other.
Yep.
So you're sort of never going to see it unless you connect to the same thing that it's on. So if you put guest Wi-Fi in it, you got to be on the guest Wi-Fi to see it.
Yeah. If you do this, it does solve the problem that when you connect to the receiver, now you're not on the internet anymore. So I personally just have a second Wi-Fi adapter. You can get them for $15 on Amazon. I just got a second Wi-Fi adapter that I plug into my laptop, so I have two Wi-Fi networks. That way, when I connect to my ExpressLRS, I connect with one. I'm connected to the internet with the other. But if you just give your ExpressLRS device your Wi-Fi network name and password, then it'll hop on your network, and then if you're also on your network, you can flash it that way, assuming it goes well. This doesn't go well a lot of the time. The other problem is that, especially on some receivers, the Wi-Fi antenna is tiny, and the range is horrible. And so, like, you'll be down in your basement, and your Wi-Fi router is upstairs, and it's fine for your laptop, but the little tiny horrible antenna on the receiver can't reach. And so, like, it can just go really badly. I think this is a cool-ass feature that when it works wonderfully, but then sometimes it causes more confusion than it solves. So, that's a guess. Thank you for your donation. So, Heilson 7256 for 179 rupees. Here's the question. What's the best DJI O4 whoop to fly indoors? Pavo Pro and Pavo Pico is too noisy for indoor flying. If you have a problem with the noise of the Pro and the Pico, you're going to need to go to larger props. But I hate to tell you this, everything is noisy. Nothing is quiet. You know? So go up to a 2.5-inch or a 3-inch cinewhoop, and it'll get somewhat quieter. Those larger props are going to spin slower. The problem is you take an O4 Pro and you put it on something like the Pavo Pico, and the little props have to spin so fast that you just make a ton of noise. You go to a larger prop, they'll spin slower and carry the weight easier, but it's still going to make a lot of noise. Like, quads just make a lot of noise. So, good luck with that. Oh my goodness. Here is 40 rupees from Adayan Mondal, who has been dying to get his question answered in the chat. At 2:19 p.m. He said, still waiting for Joshua's answer. Yes. Yes.
Can you explain to me how Betaflight versions work now and what I pick?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
because it's off the rip, there's no default reading. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, hold on. This guy is desperate. This guy doesn't. Do you know how live streams work, sir? Thank you for a 40 rupee donation. It is safe to use Betaflight 2025.12. As far as the release candidate goes, doesn't matter because they have released Betaflight 2025.12. Is that correct, Plenty? They released it, didn't they? It's full release now.
I'm asking you, man, because now there's some new alpha for 2026, so I'm not sure which version's the real version. That's what I'm asking you for.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, hang on. In that case, I thought you were just teeing me up with a question you knew the answer to.
No, that's a real question.
So what we're going to do
I can guess which one it is.
Go to Betaflight releases. So 2025.12. Okay, so firmware 2025.12 RC4. Yeah, Blunty?
Okay, go ahed.
That's the firmware version. The major version is 2025.12. The release candidates. So we have RC4. I don't know where's RC1. Did they get rid of that in the list, I guess? 453 is the last one. So RC4.
No,
where's
453 got released between RC3 and RC4 for some reason.
Okay. Okay. So they like wanted a bug fix release of 453 for people still back on 4.5. I see. Here's RC2. Here's RC4. Where's RC3? That's weird. Anyway, whatever. Maybe they retracted RC3. And then they released 2025.12.1. But they never released 2025.12.0. Is that right?
That's my confusion, because normally with semantic versioning,
yeah,
.0 would have released, right? It
and then you would
.1.
And then you would go to .1, maybe with or without a release candidate.
Right. So what happens, it seems like they've got 2025.12.1 is the released version, and then there's 2025.12.2 alpha and 2026.6.0 alpha. So I'm not
so 2026.6 is going to be the next release in 6 months. That's just a super alpha pre-release of the next one. Where are you seeing these versions? Where are you seeing these versions? Is it
in the configurator update? Yeah.
Okay, so if we go to the configurator and we look at the firmware flasher and we zoom in, release and release candidate, choose a board. So what I see is
I have development checked at the top.
Okay. So anything under development is an alpha pre-release and should not be flashed by the general public. Right? So the 2026.6.0 is the June 2026 release. That's the next major version, and you can ignore it for the time being. It's 6 months from being released. 12.2 alpha is an internal pre-release alpha build of the next dot release of 2025.12.
Okay, I'm understanding now that it's a 6 month release schedule. That's what's happening there.
Yes,
okay.
That's how I read it, just because that's how the dates are.
So the only confusing thing to me is why we dropped .0 for some reason. And
so the only confusing thing here is why did we go from 2025.12.0 RC4? We never released 12.0, and now we went straight to 12.1. But presumably, 12.1 is the official release of 2025.12, since that's the first version of 25.12 that doesn't have an RC. And as for the question, is RC4 safe to flash? I don't know, but I wouldn't bother, because there's an official release, 2025.12.1, and I would never flash a release candidate if there was an official release of the same version. In general, release candidates are usually very safe to flash if you want to try a new feature that hasn't been released yet. However, sometimes they do have bugs. That's why they're a release candidate and not a release. So, hopefully, This has cleared up some confusion, although, yeah, maybe a Betaflight dev will see this and will tell me what happened to 25.12.0 official release. It is weird that we didn't have that. You would normally expect that. All right. Is the comments adding any insight? Plenty?
Not too much.
Oh, finally you answered. I'm going to go to sleep now. Godspeed.
He's very happy.
Yeah, Godspeed. I'm sorry. There's 500 people in the live stream. I answer a lot of questions. You know. Hey, look. Not that it's all about the money. But if you leave a $50 or bigger super chat, I will immediately jump you to the front of the line. Just because I feel like that's such a generous donation that, like, I'd be like, okay. So, I run my live stream how I want to run it. I answer the questions in the order I want to answer them based on what I think is interesting. That's always how it's been. At some point, I get to the super chats, and I do super chats until I get done with them because, like, people paid money. But I usually just answer the super chats in order. But if you want to jump to the front of the line, there is either leave such an interesting question that I'm like, oh, I want to answer that. And that's a crapshoot, because how do you know what I'm going to find interesting? I probably don't think your question is that interesting. No offense, because I've probably heard it 500 times before in the last 10 years. And I don't say that with no cynicism. It's just a statement of fact. Your questions are not that interesting. Helping you is interesting, but helping you is not more interesting than helping that guy or that guy. You just all line up, and it's like that thing. Who was that lady? And she had all the guys lined up, and there were 1,000 guys in like one day, and she helped them all with their drone problems. It's something like that. When the guy steps up and he's got his problem to present to her, he's not particularly more or less interesting than the next guy in line or the last guy in line, probably. But if you show up in the live stream and you leave a $50 or $100 super chat, I will immediately bump you to the front of the line. So I'm just saying that does work. Bonnie Blue. Kids, don't look up that name. Don't look up that name, kids. It's not appropriate. I'm not about the money, but I do notice when people make large donations and try to be respectful of it. Okay. I desoldered John Cockrell. Thank you for your paltry £5. I desoldered the flight controller VTX pad. Any options? You're not completely boned. You can solder to a pin on the OSD chip. You're probably boned, but here's the thing. Let's pick a random flight controller. TBS Lucid H7. On that flight controller is a chip. It's this one, isn't it? Let me look. Yeah, it's this one. AT7456E. Oh my God. Oh, they've used oh, you're boned if it's this one. Do you see how the pins of this chip are underneath it? Let's try a different one. I need a picture, please. Speed BF405. I need a photo of the top and the bottom. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. I thought that chip looked a little different. So here, this chip right here, it's not labeled in this drawing. Maybe it's because this is a render. This is the OSD chip. One of these pins connects to the VTX or the video pad on your flight controller. So what you need to do is get a multimeter, put it in continuity mode, touch the leftover trace of the ripped off pad, and find out which of these pins the VTX pad connected to. and then solder a tiny little wire directly to this pin. And that's what you can do as a workaround. If you have a flight controller where this this OSD chip is this type of package with the connections underneath, you're boned. I don't think you can, I think you're boned. I guess a thing you could theoretically do is scrape back the solder mask and solder to the copper trace, but you're probably not going to succeed at that if you are already bad enough at soldering that you ripped up the pad. So, good luck. Good to watch stream again. Thank you, Callie FPV, for a $5 super chat. Hope you and the family are well. You seem to be the only person who doesn't think this government BS isn't that bad. Oh, no. Let me be clear. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. I originally titled my video, "No, the FCC did not just kill FPV. What did they really do?" And somebody was like, "I think you're being too easy on them." And I was like, well, I don't want to sound like I'm like, going easy on them. I just am trying to counteract some of the hysteria. It's bad. What's bad about it, there's two things that are bad about it. And this also goes back to, I said in my commentary video, I blamed this administration. And some people in the comments pointed out that the original 2025 NDAA was passed under the previous administration, which is absolutely true, and which I have never shied away from. This is not a partisan issue. The DJI and Autel ban and the weaselly wording that said, someone needs to do an audit, and if no one does an audit, they're banned. Knowing that no one would do the audit unless you specifically task them with doing the audit. I feel like that was a given, right? I feel like, if anything, the Biden administration punted that to the current administration. Be like, I don't know, you're president. You decide that the NSA or the FBI needs to do the audit. Or you take the flack for not doing the audit. But that would presume that the Biden administration would have done the audit. And I'm not convinced that they would have. I'm convinced that I firmly believe, and this is just a gut check belief with no facts, but, whatever. I firmly believe that the writing of the 2025 NDAA was vague specifically because they knew that at the end of a year, they could just go, I guess DJI is banned by default. How could this have happened? And no one would have to actually, it wouldn't be quite as much political fallout as if they just explicitly banned them. And we would have a year to get used to it. To get used to the idea. You see the train, which is better? You look down the tracks and you see the train coming. Or do you just get plowed by the train one day? I don't know, actually. When you put it that way, I kind of feel like getting plowed by the train would be better. I guess I don't know. What is uniquely, but going back, people said, oh, you're blaming this administration, but this got started under the previous administration. No, that's true. What this administration did was add in all foreign SUAS, and all foreign SUAS components are banned. And that is what unique to this administration, is making these radical, broad-ranging, poorly defined declarations with no warning and no public input, and apparently no concern for the consequences or fallout on ordinary people and businesses. The fact that no one heard a whisper of a ban on foreign SUAS and foreign components until the day before the DJI ban was supposed to kick in, and suddenly here comes a notice from the FCC, and we all go, yeah, okay, I guess the DJI and Autel ban happened. Well, we kind of knew that was going to happen. It sucks, but at least we've had a year to prepare. I, as a business owner, had a year to buy a new DJI agricultural drone, or 2 or 5. I, as a business owner, had a year to buy a new Matrice or a new Mavic for mapping. I could prepare for this ban to go into effect, or I had a whole year to shift my fleet over to some other company. And I open that memo from the FCC, and it says, DJI and Autel are banned. Oh, and by the way, everybody else is banned too! Ha ha! Merry Christmas, fuckers! That is something that is unique to this administration. And that is what I blame this administration for when I say this administration, without taking anything away from the previous administration for the DJI ban and the Autel ban. This is not a partisan issue. I do think there are things that are uniquely awful about this administration and the way that they impose policy. The way that a government should impose policy is to say, like, obviously, if like a legitimate emergency is happening, then don't wait, just act. But as far as business goes, as tariff goes, as the economy goes, the way that it should work is, I say as an expert in policy, right? Obviously. I say as a person who runs a business, as a person who is very close to a lot of people who run small and medium-sized businesses and has seen the fallout effect of this administration's policies. The way that it should work is that you say, hey guys, here is the direction we want the economy to move. And here are the things we're thinking about doing to move the economy that way. And now everybody goes, oh shit, if you do that, I'm going to be fucked. And then there's a period where you talk to the business owners and they say, hey, if you do that, we're going to be fucked. And you go, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to change the policy. Or you go, nope, you're going to get fucked. And you have 6 months to prepare. Get ready for it. I apologize for those who don't like when I swear, but this is a topic I feel very passionate about, and I just want to kind of get my feelings out. So you say, here is the direction we want our policy to push the economy and push the business culture. This is the way we're going, guys. And then you telegraph your move and you give everybody a chance to prepare. And then the policy goes through and everybody has sort of set themselves up. And this idea that we should run the economy but like a boxer. I'm not gonna let my opponent know what's coming. I'm gonna feint. I'm gonna duck. I'm gonna jab. It's like when you're boxing, your opponent is the one you're ducking and feinting and jabbing. But the U.S. government and the businesses that are run inside the United States are not your opponent. You need to telegraph your moves to your allies. You telegraph your moves to your allies. It's like, hey guys, I've got a shield. I'm going to run out onto oh, am I going left? Am I going right? Do you want to be behind my shield or not? I don't know. I'm not going to. You need to tell your allies what direction you're going. And what happens is, when the government makes radical decisions on the spur of the moment, and then 2 months later makes another decision, business owners, number one, they just go out of business because they can't keep up. And the ones that do keep up are like, I don't know why I should listen to this guy at all. And they move their business out of the country because it's terrible because you can't succeed here. And I'm not talking hypothetically. I'm talking about actual things that I see happening. So, that is the biggest problem. He said, this all started by saying, you seem to be the only person who doesn't think this BS is that bad. I don't think the ban is that bad because I have no idea what the actual effect of the ban will be because this administration is so hard to interpret what the F they mean, which is not what you want from your government. You want to know what the government wants from you and know what you need to do in order to get a result out of the government. And when the government says, hey, this is banned, but maybe it's not banned. Maybe there's a tariff. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's less. You just go, I don't know why I should listen to anything you should say. So the ban, maybe it's banned, maybe it's not. And in that respect, it's not as bad as if we just took them at their word and said it was banned. But it's bad because we live in an environment where you can't take any effing thing the government says seriously anymore because you don't know how they're going to interpret their policies. And that's a terrible environment to live in, both as a business owner and a citizen. And I assume I don't know. Yeah. So it's bad. It's just not bad in the way that all the other YouTubers think it's bad, because they took the FCC ban at face value and went, FPV components are banned. And I was like, I don't know if they're banned. I don't think you should freak out about them being banned. If you want to freak out about the fact that the government cannot telegraph a clear and concise policy and get input from the public about how that policy will affect them until after they announce the policy. That's such a bigger problem than the fact that we can't get air units. That's my take. All right. Well, apparently I've set off the Discord server. Sorry, Blunty. Alrighty. Thank you, We Bleed FPV, for a $100 donation. Go shop at We Bleed FPV, guys. That's a free plug. Thank you for the donation, We Bleed. At least if I knew the government was going to do something horrible, I could be like, well, they're doing something horrible. That sucks. Here's what I'm going to do about it. It's even worse, like not being sure whether they're going to do something horrible, because you can't interpret what they say. It's extremely frustrating. All right. Try saying Parth. Parth Vatnagar. Thank you for a 40 rupee. Part. Thank you, Dian Mondal, for the 100 rupee donation. Yosferos, is there any practical advantage to KISS V3 versus V2 that would justify rebuilding my V2 quads? Thank you for a $5 super chat. I can't speak to the V3 versus V2 question. I can tell you I almost never will take a perfectly good working quad and rip parts out of it to like upgrade it and make it better. I will just build a second quad. If you've got a KISS V2 quad that you like flying, enjoy flying it for as long as it lives, because its days are numbered. They all are. Just build yourself a new one with V3 and see if it's any better. Hi from Poland. Thank you for 30 Polish zloty from Ni Photograph. I still run Crossfire 69 on my quads. Love my Tango 2, but I'm thinking of moving video to HDZero. Is it worth it for OpenSpace Freestyle? I don't think OpenSpace Freestyle is where HDZero excels. I don't think you're going to be happy with the range and penetration you get compared to a 1.6 watt 69. You might be. I don't think that's going to be like ooh, that was definitely worth the money. Given that choice, I would stick with analog. But that's just, there are HDZero people who love it and who disagree with that decision. To me, HDZero makes the most sense for racing. So, that's my personal take. I will acknowledge that other people don't agree with that take. High Speed Boom, thank you for a $10 super chat. Do you ever have fans or friends show up flying around or near your house? Just curious. No, not uninvited. So far, no one has done anything like that. Is it true KISS V3 can run any ESC now? KISS has always been able to work with any D-Shot ESC, not just KISS ESCs. Kevin Doherty. That's not Kevin Doherty. That's a different Kevin. That's Dougherty, is Kevin Dougherty, is Stinger Swarm. That's a hell of a coincidence, though. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Another 40 rupees from our friend. First build. A 4-inch suits me. It's a durable frame, but no spare parts for it. I don't like that. I ain't going to be doing hardcore freestyle. Should I risk the 4-inch or build a 5-inch with better support? I would really hesitate. You're going to crash and you're going to break it. If I couldn't get spare parts, I would have to love that frame in order to pick it. Oh my God, we're caught up on the super chats. How do I add deadbands to pitch, roll, and yaw in Betaflight? That is going to be in the PID tuning tab, rate profile settings. Well, if it was anywhere, that's where it would be. It's not there. Is it a CLI option only? Hold on. Let me plug in a flight controller. Doop. There it is. Go to the CLI.
In the receiver tab, right?
You would think. I didn't see it there. You want to look? Let's look together.
Okay.
I don't know why, but this flight controller takes a minute. It takes forever to reconnect over USB. Receiver. Oh, it's receiver tab. I was in the rate profile. Is it in receiver? Oh, it is. Yeah. Good. It's in the receiver tab. Shows what I know. RC deadband and yaw deadband. That's how you can add it. Easy peasy. Once you know where it is, it's easy peasy. Is custom motor mix still relevant in 2025? Like with dead cat? I wouldn't bother with it. I don't think it's worth bothering with most of the time. Technically, yes, if you have a non-symmetrical frame, a custom motor mix can be relevant. What RC Link preset would you use if using an old Flysky RC Link? Just the default. The default is fine for the old slow RC Links. You only need to load a custom RC Link profile if you're doing a more modern high-speed RC Link. My Radiomaster Pocket controller doesn't connect to my iOS device. Yes, Apple locks out USB connection to official peripherals only. It will not do generic HID controller. Radiomaster Pocket cannot be used over USB with an Apple device.
Can you answer the newest question that just got asked, the ARJOV Supreme?
Hold on. Maybe.
A lot of people asking that question during our Betaflight
questions.
conversations.
Which one? Put it up.
Okay.
How did you get the new Betaflight on your desktop? I can only see the online version. How do I load it to my desktop? Easy. Yeah. You go to app.betaflight.com, and then in the upper right-hand corner of the browser, you will see Save as App. Now, mine says Open in App because I've already installed it. You will see up here in the right side of the address bar an option to save it as an app. Let's try, what about ESC Configurator? Have I done that one yet? Nope, I already have. Let's try AM32 Configurator. Have I done that one already? Interesting. There we go. After just a second, it says install, right? You do install, and it installs it as an app. Yeah, hit install. Do you want to install this app? Yes, install. There it is. And now, down here, whoops, hold on. It is installed as an app on my computer, AM32 Configurator. No longer need to be online to use it. I mean, you may still need to be online to like download firmware files or something.
Yeah, you shouldn't need to be online to run it, though, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's how it works. Thoughts on the new Radiomaster radio they teased the other day? Thank you for a $5 super chat, Jay Waller. Yeah, it looks like they've got an updated TX16 with a big touchscreen. That's kind of cool. If you like the TX16, it's nice that it's getting an update.
Warnock's got a question in the Discord. That's a pretty good one.
What do we got?
I'll pull that one up.
Yeah, go for it. Can you explain why using an RX preset in the preset tabs makes a noticeable difference in flight performance? Yeah, so the RC link is sending packets at a certain rate, right? RC packets. Every time there's an RC packet comes in, the RC channels get updated inside Betaflight. And what that means is that the RC, it's called RC command. RC command is a stepwise function, not a smooth function. So every time a packet comes in, the RC channels get updated, right? And so that causes stair stepping, whether it's it's 50 times a second or 500 times a second, the stair stepping happens. Betaflight then, the problem is that Betaflight has a PID term called feed forward, and feed forward triggers off of changes in the RC command. So when that stair stepping happens, feed forward does nothing, nothing, nothing. Feed forward, big jump. Every time the stair stepping happens, feed forward freaks out. So what they do is, before feed forward gets applied, they smooth it. They have a low pass on it to smooth it out. And that makes everything better. If the feed forward is not tuned correctly and the low pass filtering is not tuned correctly for the packet rate, then the PID loop can freak out and the quad can fly badly. So when you have a fast packet rate with not enough smoothing, feed forward freaks out. And so that's why when you have a faster packet rate, you need to tweak load the correct preset. That's what the preset does. The preset changes the feed forward settings and it changes the low pass settings, the filtering settings. The long story short is load the preset that most closely matches your packet rate. Crom wants to know if I've had a chance to play with the BetaFPV Artlynk. I have not. It's in the mail. It's in the mail, but I haven't seen it yet. I've heard that it has better range and penetration than the Ascent system. I'm very interested to hear about it. But it's in the mail. I haven't received it yet. Are F7 boards fast enough to run an X8 cinelifter? Here's a question from Professor Biohazard. Yes, absolutely. I saw a Betaflight dev recommend against it in the Betaflight Discord. That doesn't make sense. But if a Betaflight dev recommended against it, I guess. What are you going to run, an H7? Is it the D-shot outputs? The thing is, you could just reduce the PID loop from 8K to 4K, and now you have, if you're running 8 D-shot outputs instead of 4, I don't see what the issue could be. I'd need more context. I think that probably this was a more specific recommendation than just saying don't run an X8 on an F7. But I don't know. That's weird. Arjovo Supreme says, any thoughts on the new advancements in Open IPC? I've heard it's pretty close to getting towards proprietary digital video systems. Have you heard that? Did you hear that from some YouTuber who made a video about it? And in the thumbnail, he's going like this. Is that right? This is my new thumbnail for every Open IPC video. Yeah, this time it's finally good enough. It's just as good as DJI. Did you hear that? Pretty close. It's getting pretty close to being almost as good as Walk Snail was 2 years ago, maybe, if you you know, if you pray to a god and sacrifice a chicken on the day that you build it. I'll believe. I'm. Color me skeptical. Color me skeptical. Someday I'll be wrong about that.
Crumb pointed out, and I found in the developer guidelines for Betaflight that they do not allow flight controller designs that use F4 or F7 with more than 4 motor outputs.
The fuck? Wow. When did that happen?
The wall guess is this is based on some like timer or DMA count, and they're having to do something virtual to make more than 4 outputs when you're on.
But what changed?
An F4 or an F7.
You could run an Octo on an F7 and an F4 6 months ago. The chip hasn't changed. What changed?
I mean, I think the old targets are still there. I think they're probably just saying like through their understanding of things, you know. I was looking for, it looks like 12th of September 2025 was an update on motor requirements, so maybe then, but I can't really tell when that was added. I don't see a log.
Wow. Well, there you go. Very interesting. That's definitive.
Oh, Joseph Dahari coming in with the post there. I called it.
I mean, a lot of people are using the H7 anyway, but that's still interesting. I wonder what changed.
I suspect it's just some like they got together and were like, it's probably not safe for us to continue approving these, like because there's, you know, some of them that can't support it properly or having to virtualize like timers or something, you know, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know why I feel kind of spent after some ranting on this stream. Can you solder motor wires on the opposite side from plugs? Yeah, sure, it doesn't matter. As long as they don't make contact with the frame. Oh. Hey, we're about to wrap up. SteadyFPV is going to be streaming after me. You can go check out his stream. And yeah, I'm going to go enjoy my day. How is your AM32 experience? Thank you for a €6 super chat, Juice Stromp. I've had mixed experiences with AM32. I can tell you, so in general, AM32 is fine. However, I had one person I know who was having a problem with their ESCs, the AM32 ESCs. They were building a bunch of quads, and the quads were falling out of the air like desyncs, and like when you raise throttle, the motor would stutter as you raise throttle. And they tried and tried and tried to run it down, and finally, they were even working with Pete Smits, the AM32 dev, literally working with him. He graciously, he was like, I don't know, let's try and figure it out. They mailed him a quadcopter, and they were using VCI hobby motors, and he said, oh, you didn't tell me you were using VCI hobby motors. These motors have really thin magnets, and I saw a picture. And sure enough, VCI hobby motors, these ones did have thinner magnets than comparable motors. And because of that, the back EMF is super weak and causes problems. And he was like, yeah, we could add more capacitors or whatever to the ESCs, but then the ESCs would perform worse for everybody else. And I was like, BL32 never had a problem with VCI hobby motors. It's just you. So apparently, the takeaway is that AM32 is doing some kind of slightly envelope-pushing high-performance stuff. But there are some motors out there, VCI hobbies being one, that like will just desync and just can't be used with an AM32 motor. This is the kind of thing that you might want to know. So, in general, I think AM32 is fine for most people. Anyway. All right, that's going to do it. We got all the super chats answered. It's past the hour. Ciati's starting his stream. We're going to wrap up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. We're going to have regular live streams pretty much through the end of January. So, well, that'll have been 2 solid months of hardly missing a single live stream. Very nice. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye.